I never intended to stay after dark at Blackgang Chine. Nobody does. The oldest amusement park in the UK has its charms during the daylight hours. The themed lands, the Pirate Cove, the Fairy Village, all those family-friendly attractions that have been slowly migrating inland over decades as the unstable cliffs surrender more and more land to the sea below. But as the sun sets over the English Channel, something changes. It was my third visit to the Isle of Wight that spring. I had been commissioned to document some of the park's more unusual features for a travel magazine. A puff piece, really, meant to draw in summer tourists. The assignment should have been straightforward. Take some photos, jot down some colorful history about smugglers and shipwrecks, mention the whale skeleton from 1842, and be on my way. Easy money. I'd spent most of the afternoon photographing the newer attractions in Restricted Area 5. Those massive robotic dinosaurs that lumber and roar on their programmed tracks. Children screamed with delight, while parents snapped photos on their phones. Normal tourist stuff, but I kept getting drawn back to one particular exhibit, tucked away in a dimly lit corner of the park. The Triassic Club. There was something about the 3 animatronic dinosaurs inside that unsettled me from the moment I first saw them. Darwin the Allosaurus, the master of the trio, with his aristocratic posture and eyes that seemed to follow you around the room. Oscar the pianist, some kind of ornithomimosaur, with wild, permanently alarmed eyes. And Wallace the butler, a dromaeosaur with unsettling sickle claws.
"Do come in."
Darwin's recorded voice would purr every few minutes, his mechanical head turning toward visitors.
"The master is expecting you."
Wallace would respond in his high, anxious tone.
"He's always expecting something, and guess who has to get it for him? Me, that's who."
I'd seen animatronics before. Disney's Hall of Presidents, Universal's Jurassic Park rides. But these 3 felt different. Less manufactured, more eerie. The park was closing at 6 p.m., and I'd planned to catch the last Southern Vectis bus back to my B&B in Ventnor, but as I was packing up my gear, my phone buzzed with a text from my editor. Need night shots of park. Old ghost stories angle. Bonus if really spooky. Deadline tomorrow. I sighed. The last bus would be gone in 20 minutes. I'd have to call a taxi later, assuming I could even get reception in this coastal dead zone. I texted back a quick affirmative and approached a staff member who was ushering the last families toward the exit. "Excuse me, I'm doing a feature for London Weekend. Is there any chance I could stay a bit longer to get some night shots?" The young woman, Katie, looked uncertain. "We were really not supposed to, but I guess I could check with Simon. Wait here." She disappeared into a staff building, leaving me alone as the last stragglers filtered out of the park gates. The April evening was turning chilly, and I pulled my jacket tighter around me. In the distance, I could hear the mechanical groans of the dinosaurs in Restricted Area 5, shutting down for the night. 15 minutes later, Katie returned with a set of keys and a walkie-talkie. "Simon says it's fine, but I need to lock up the main gates. Just call when you're done, and security will let you out the service entrance." She hesitated. "Try to be done by 8, yeah? The night guard gets cranky if his rounds are interrupted." I promised, thanked her, and watched as she locked the main entrance behind her. And just like that, I was alone in a 180-year-old amusement park built on unstable cliffs that had been swallowing up attractions for years. The silence was the first thing I noticed. During operating hours, Blackgang is filled with the screams of delighted children, the tinny music from various rides, the constant hum of human activity. Now there was nothing but the distant crash of waves against the base of the cliff, and the occasional creak of cooling metal from the dormant attractions. I decided to start with some exterior shots of the park's famous smuggler statue, that gigantic fiberglass figure between whose legs visitors passed to enter. In the gathering twilight, his face seemed more menacing than welcoming, shadows pooling in the hollows of his eyes. As I adjusted my camera settings, I felt a strange prickling sensation at the back of my neck. Someone was watching me. I spun around, but the paths behind me were empty. Just my imagination, surely. This was exactly the kind of atmosphere my editor wanted for the piece. A little touch of the uncanny to spice up the tourist fluff. The light was fading quickly. I hurried to capture some shots of the Pirates' Cove and Cowboy Town, both taking on a distinctly eerie quality in the gloaming. The empty saloon with its swinging doors, the pirate ship creaking slightly in the coastal breeze. All perfect for the spooky angle my editor was pushing for. By the time I made it to the dinosaur area, true darkness had fallen. The park's pathway lights provided just enough illumination to navigate, but the dinosaur enclosures themselves were largely dark, the massive robotic creatures looming as shadowy silhouettes against the night sky. I fumbled for my flashlight, directing its beam toward a towering brachiosaurus. In the harsh, direct light, its eyes gleamed with an unnatural shine. I snapped a few photos, the camera flash briefly illuminating the scene in stark white, before plunging it back into darkness. It was nearly 8 when I remembered I still hadn't photographed the Triassic Club. I hesitated. Even in daylight, those 3 dinosaurs had disturbed me. But it was precisely that unsettling quality that would make for great photos. I made my way to the exhibit, which was housed in its own small building designed to look like a Victorian gentleman's club. The door was slightly ajar, which struck me as odd. Surely all the exhibits should have been shut down for the night. I pushed the door open wider. The interior was dark except for a single spotlight that remained illuminated, casting a weak pool of light onto Darwin the Allosaurus. His mechanical frame was motionless, frozen in mid-gesture, with one clawed hand extended in welcome. Oscar sat silently at his piano, his wild eyes staring blankly ahead. Wallace stood stiffly by the door, serving tray clutched in his 3-fingered hand. The spotlight created exactly the kind of dramatic lighting I needed. I raised my camera and took several shots from different angles, the flash briefly flooding the room with light each time. As I reviewed the images on my camera's display, something caught my eye. In the last photo, Darwin's head appeared to be turned slightly more to the left than in the previous shots. I looked up at the animatronic dinosaur. Its head was positioned exactly as it had been when I entered. Just a trick of the light, I told myself. Or maybe the camera angle? I took another photo to reassure myself. This time, there was no mistaking it. In the new image, Darwin's eyes were definitely looking directly at the camera. My heart began to pound. I raised my eyes from the display to look at the actual animatronic. Darwin's head was now fully turned in my direction, though I hadn't heard any of the usual mechanical whirs and clicks that accompany the animatronic's movements during operating hours.
Come in. Oh, do come in.
The voice was Darwin's familiar recorded greeting, but there was something wrong with it. The timing was slightly altered, as though the words were being chosen deliberately rather than played back from a recording. I backed toward the door, my camera clutched tightly in my trembling hands. As I moved, I heard a sound from behind me, the soft click of the door closing. I spun around. Wallace the butler dinosaur was no longer in the position I remembered him being. The serving tray lay discarded on the floor, and the door was now firmly shut.
The master is expecting you.
The voice came from directly behind me, closer than it should have been. Won't you join the Triassic Club? Membership lasts forever. I whirled around again, nearly losing my balance. It was Darwin, but his voice had lost its recorded quality entirely. It was now smooth, cultured, with none of the squeaky, fretful tone I'd heard earlier that day. I pressed my back against the door, facing the room.
What's happening?
I managed to whisper, my voice barely audible, even to myself. Then Darwin's head seemed to tilt slightly, a movement so small I might have imagined it. I fumbled for the door handle, my eyes never leaving the 3 dinosaurs. The metal was ice cold beneath my fingers, and it wouldn't turn. Jammed somehow.
"The master is expecting you,"
Wallace said, his voice sounding less like a recording and more like speech. I banged on the door, hoping the night guard might hear me.
"Hello? Anyone out there? I'm locked in."
The lights suddenly shut off.
Won't you join our club?
Darwin declared enthusiastically. I felt something snag the back of my jacket. I pulled, heard the material tear, and stumbled forward, nearly colliding with Oscar at the piano. I quickly snatched my camera bag from the floor and tried the door again. After crashing into it with my shoulder at full speed, it finally flew open. I launched out into the night air, drawing in deep breaths as though I'd been underwater. The park was silent around me, the path lights creating pools of illumination in the darkness. I moved quickly but quietly toward the service entrance. As I rounded the corner past Restricted Area 5, I nearly collided with the night guard, a heavy-set man with a flashlight and a puzzled expression.
You the photographer?
He asked, squinting at me.
You're late. It's after 8.
"Sorry, I got lost,"
I managed to say. He grunted and led me to the service entrance, seemingly oblivious to my shaking hands and rapid breathing.
Get what you needed?
"Yes."
I lied. It wasn't until I was safely back in my B&B in Ventnor that I plugged my camera into my laptop to download the photos. Most were what I expected. Exterior shots of the park at twilight, the shadowy dinosaurs of Restricted Area 5, the deserted Pirate Cove. But then came the shots of the Triassic Club. I wanted to prove to myself that maybe I'd just gotten psyched out and that nothing had really happened in there. The first few showed the 3 dinosaurs exactly as they should have been. Darwin in his chair, Oscar at the piano, Wallace by the door. But in the last image, taken right before the lights went out, all 3 were looking directly at the camera. Hard to notice if you weren't there, but I knew they weren't supposed to be pointed that way, based on how they were set up when I got there. They had somehow deliberately moved to look at me. I stared at the photo for a long time, trying to rationalize what I was seeing, but I knew it was real. What I had felt, the claw that grabbed my shirt, the voice that didn't sound like a recording. I sent the photos to my editor with a brief and took the first ferry back to the mainland the next morning. I've never returned to the Isle of Wight. I've never talked about what happened. I mean, honestly, who would really believe me? Sometimes I try to convince myself it was all stress and exhaustion, my mind playing tricks after too many hours of work, but I don't believe it. 3 months after my visit, I read in a local paper that parts of Blackgang Chine had been lost to coastal erosion. Among the attractions being relocated further inland was the Triassic Club. The article mentioned they were taking the opportunity to update and enhance the animatronics. I worry about the technicians working on those updates, whether they noticed anything strange about the 3 dinosaurs, or if they were invited to join the Triassic Club, where membership lasts forever.